You might have noticed that a lot of the highest DPS warriors aren't using the epic gloves all the time. That might make you think, why do they not think this haste is very valuable? And I'm going to show you in a moment. But first, I want to have a thought experiment with you. Okay, this is the experiment. Imagine that you're playing a warrior and you have 500 rage as the cap instead of 100. Okay, so you have like 500 rage as the cap, and you have a weapon that has a 1 billion second swing timer. Okay, so every time you hit the boss with an auto attack, you go to full rage. Absolutely, for sure. Okay, and then you're going to be using quick strike. What's going to happen? If you have Wind Fury, you will never get a regular auto attack off because you're going to have so many quick strikes between auto attacks that you will always get a Wind Fury proc first. So if you had a infinitely slow weapon, then that means that haste would have no value for you because you would always end up truncating the actual time you save very heavily. Interesting. So what happens as we compress the timeline? Well, you imagine if we had a 20-second attack speed timer on a sword and you were doing a quick strike every global, then you'd be able to get like 13 of them off. If you think that you will never go 13 hits in a row without a Wind Fury proc, then on a 20 speed weapon, any level of haste basically would be worthless. And this is what we're going to see when we analyze this log. Now, in this case, the fight is Baron Aquinas. And the reason I picked it is because it's a very short fight, and so it's much more likely that you have a situation occur where this is the case. Now, let's track the auto attack starting at the top. This one is definitely not Wind Furied because it's the first one. And this one is also definitely not Wind Furied because it's 3.5 seconds later. If you look all the way down, you'll see that this attack, there's two of them right back to back. This one must be a real one, and the one under it's a Wind Fury. Sadly, all the other instances of Heroic Strike and Melee that occur in here, these are all Wind Furies. Interesting. So let's say that you did have haste. If you wanted to utilize the haste up here, you could have popped your gloves on pull. And if you did, since this Wind Fury occurs only a second after this real hit, you would only have the effect help between these 2 points in time, which means that up here you could at best get 3.5 divided by 10 in speed increase, so 0.35 seconds. That'd be best case scenario. You pop these things on pull, and that means that this first hit right here that I'm looking at, the 4-second one, instead of it being at 4, it happens at about 3.7. Everything else happens the same. You also have an opportunity down here to, I guess, benefit from the haste, or, at least collect this time, but you'd have to do it right after you see that this Wind Fury activates, right down here. And it would be the same deal. You'd only say 0.35 seconds. The gap between this is over 10 seconds here, so that means you couldn't possibly hit both of these at the same time. Well, even if, let's say, the attack speed enhancement on this was like 20% instead of 10, you still wouldn't get an extra hit off because look all the way at the bottom. Only 1 second elapses here. And you have a 3.5 speed weapon. So even if you're 20% faster, you still wouldn't get that other hit off. It would be like all the way down here if you didn't get unlucky and get another Wind Fury. So that's how we could kind of think about reasons why haste might not be valuable to us. Now, these situations would be completely different if you're dual wielding because the offhand is guaranteed to receive value. You have to imagine the offhand cannot receive Wind Furies. It can only potentially generate a Wind Fury for the main hand if you're enhanced shaman or using like a flurry axe, but for literally anybody, your offhand will always benefit fully from haste. And if your main hand's faster, the likelihood that it'll benefit from haste is also much higher because you can think of the other extreme. You have a weapon that hits for infinitesimally little damage, but it hits every nanosecond. Well, it would always benefit from haste because you're practically never going to have a Wind Fury occur between two individual nanoseconds. So that's just a little bit of a way you can try to think, is the haste helpful for me or is it not? Probably a good rule of thumb would be always use a two-hander and no haste gloves on Aquinas. On any of the bosses where you will be using dual wield, you can go ahead and use the Void Gloves. If you're using the two-hander, probably don't use the Void Gloves unless you have a plan for them.